Well, one of the hardest things was I felt really lonely in my
Mm,
relationship,
mm,
unsupported, and honestly, there was this seemingly disconnect between me and my husband, and I just didn't know the source of it, and I spent time trying to figure it out and create connection through just constant talking, honestly. And the more I talked, the less it seemed to really penetrate. And I just didn't know how else to connect. And I was at a point where I thought maybe we've had our trial and it's time to go our separate ways. And it got to the point where we couldn't have conversations without going to therapy. Felt emotionally exhausted, mentally exhausted, and just at my wits' end. Approximately over the course of 2 to 3 weeks, I started to see the shifts. So it was pretty quick.
So not
Um,
years of therapy, just to double check.
no,
All right.
no, seriously. And I would say that shift happened in me, and then I noticed a shift in my husband. Well, what he did was he started to want to be in my company more. He kind of gravitated towards the spaces and just sat there. And typically in the past, he was only there if he had to be there. He started to do the things I asked in the ways that honored me. And it was less of a back and forth or why do I have to keep bringing this up? And he honestly took me for my at my word because I'm actually speaking my truth. I would say as a container, originally it felt like a very small container. I could barely breathe in. I will say through breathing, the container has expanded. It feels warm. It feels inviting and safe. It's safe. But he's just there. And he'll, maybe lay on my shoulder or ask questions. And there's like this, it's a community sense now. And I'll say it like this. I thought I wanted to be in a like-minded partnership, but I realized I just want to be in a like-hearted partnership. And we have that.
Okay, we're going. Thank you, Rosalie, for joining us today and doing this interview for us. I know this is going to be very inspirational to the women out there who probably feel very much in the place where you were at. And yeah, so thank you. Welcome.
Thank you both for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Yeah.
Yeah, we are too.
Yeah, we've been looking forward to this. So, as always, what I'd love to do is start from really where you were at when you reached out to us when we first started talking. I know you had some things going on in your life and in yourself, and yeah, in your own words, just go ahead and fill us in.
Yeah, absolutely. Right before I joined LBL, I actually recently left my full-time job. It was like one of those things where it was the weakest link, it had to go. And I saw the need in my home, I saw the need in my family, and I saw the need within myself. And I was essentially exhausted. But when I got back home, I didn't know exactly how to show up in that space. And thankfully, through searching online, I found LBL, and there was just so much going on. I felt emotionally exhausted, mentally exhausted, and just at my wits' end when it came to how to actually bring the change I wanted to see.
Mm,
Mm.
yeah. And what was some of because I remember on us having that call together and you felt like you were kind of stuck, a little bit stuck and going around in circles. Yeah. Can you remember all that time ago? Yeah. What were some of the things that were really frustrating you and painful for you in the relationship?
Well, one of the hardest things was I felt really lonely in my
Mm,
relationship. Um,
mm,
Unsupported, and honestly, there was this seemingly disconnect between me and my husband, and I just didn't know the source of it, and I spent time trying to figure it out and create connection through just constant talking, honestly. And the more I talked, the less it seemed to really penetrate, and I just didn't know how else to connect, and I was at a point where I thought maybe we've had our trial and it's time to go our separate ways. And I
mm,
didn't want to make that decision, but I was at that point where it's like, okay, the rubber's meeting the road, something has to change, and maybe it's me.
Mm.
So reaching out and doing the LBL call, the clarity call really helped me see, where to start.
Mm.
Yeah, the two quick things I want to just pick up on what you said there. One, first of all, is this part where you said maybe it's me, right? And that there's such a profundity to that, because one of the things about you, Rosalie, honestly, and which has I think really facilitated so much of this positive change that you've experienced, is this humble willingness to just look everywhere, not just at him, right? And it's such a powerful thing, and it's really tricky for a lot of women out there, through no fault of their own, to separate that from taking the blame or letting him off the hook or whatever the case may be. And the other thing you said was about, you know, all the talking and, didn't quite work. And so many of the women we speak to, they think the problem is in sort of the communication skills department, when really, the real power is communicated on that energetic level. It's not through words. It's not what you say or how you say it or when exactly to say it to him and all this kind of stuff. It's who is saying it. What's your energy? So yeah, I just wanted to highlight that as a teaching point for everyone listening.
Mm.
Yes.
And do you know, yeah, Rosalie, can you pinpoint what was it that made you, because what happens for so many women is we get stuck for a long time, and sometimes, as painful as it is, it's hard to make that decision, that something needs to change. Can you recall, was there anything in particular that made you feel like, for instance, what, I'm willing to actually, something really needs to change, and I'm willing to look at myself? Or was there something that happened within your external environment? Yeah. Would you be able to
Yeah,
share that?
quite a few things happened, but like specifically, my spouse would go on travel for work quite often, and it was getting to the point where my mind space was just occupied constantly. Like, well, what is he doing? Maybe he's busy because he's moving on, and maybe he found another interest. And I wasn't a productive human being, and to the extent I wanted to be, because my mind was just so consumed with, putting so much energy in, what's going wrong with our marriage. And I didn't have enough energy even for myself. And I remember when he went on a trip, I just wanted him to do the work for me, in a sense. I wanted him to love me enough and, communicate with me so I feel connected to myself. And essentially, I wanted him to play the role I could not play for myself. And I saw that he was exhausted as well. And I just, even though deep down I knew that was the truth, I didn't know how to get to that next step. So I wanted the tools to do what I felt deeply within me.
Mm, yeah, beautiful. And had you tried anything else in the past?
Yeah, therapy. We talk therapy, a lot of talk therapy. And it was helpful in some ways, but it got to the point where we couldn't have conversations without going to therapy.
Mm,
Essentially, we were tabling all of our conversations for therapy. And
mm,
it was like we were tiptoeing around each other's feelings to keep the peace, and, so no one's exploding or, imploding. But we were saving every conversation for a therapist. And that's when I knew that this is not healthy. This
mm,
is just a coping mechanism, and it's
mm,
not really healthy for us.
mm. Yeah, kind of like a crutch, but at some point,
Mhm.
yeah, what's you need to get strong enough to be able to walk side by
Yes.
side with each other without this intermediary. And it speaks to your point as well. I think, yeah, I mean, I know a lot of therapists. I used to live with one, and that is essentially the role of couples therapy, is to be a communication mediary, which is really very different to transformation.
Mm. And
Yes.
it's yeah, it's so interesting how, as we, as a sort of society, we get more and more connected to mental health and taking care of ourselves
Mm,
emotionally, psychologically, the normalization of therapy, which is, good in its own way. But one of the great things is you didn't fall into the trap of feeling like, well, all couples need a couples therapist. No, they don't
Mm.
actually, and not relying on that crutch, as you said. So that's really powerful. And yeah, so I'm really curious now, and this is the exciting stuff, which is what are some of the changes that you noticed, when you started doing the program, started making these inner shifts for yourself. What are some of the changes that you noticed within yourself and in Will as well? And also, actually, what I'm also curious about is how soon did you
Mm,
notice those changes? Because that's the bit that often blows people's minds.
okay. Okay. So the shifts kind of happened around the same time that I lost a family member. So
Mm.
it was all quite um, a rush. And I remember you both reaching out to me and saying how this is essentially like an opportunity for me, and I realized how many emotions I did not process in my lifetime. I never really learned how to properly grieve. And thankfully, because of LBL, I got in touch with my emotions and even my grief in a deeper way, which I believe played a role in such a quick transformation, because the emotions were so strong and prevalent and right there. And I was able to just reach out a little bit more and touch it. And I would say the courage to do that was what I had. And
Mm,
the first shift I noticed was being able to sit with uncomfortable emotions,
Mm.
um, sit with them and give them space to just be. And most of my life, I learned essentially spiritually bypass a lot of uncomfortable or not so pleasant emotions, and seek the pleasant ones, or at least aspire even if you have to fake it, get there. And you guys didn't encourage that at all, and that I had permission to feel.
Mm.
mm,
Mm.
And that was a comfort in itself. And during that time, I was feeling things and learning to truly allow them to be. And through those experiences, I had wisdom come out of them. And I noticed that that was the first thing I was able to feel my feelings without suppressing them.
Mm.
And then secondly, I stopped feeling lonely. I would say loneliness was something that I knew very well in my lifetime. And throughout the shifts, I started to enjoy my own company.
Mm.
Um, I started to want that time alone. And I would say before the program, those times only came to avoid confrontation, to avoid feelings. But it was essentially, no, this is a space to feel those feelings, to give them permission to know myself more deeply. And I would say that shift happened in me, and then I noticed a shift in my husband. Well, what he did was he started to want to be in my company more. He kind of gravitated towards the spaces and just sat there. And typically in the past, he was only there if he had to be there, if he had to say something, or it's our time together kind of thing. But just being there to be, there was a comfort in our company.
Mm. Oh, I love
mm,
that. It's like I can, you paint the picture so clearly. I can really feel your energy and him just wanting to gravitate towards that. And it
Yeah.
just makes so much sense what you said about the loneliness, because my feeling about loneliness is we're lonely. It's like we're we're lonely from ourselves. Like that's the
Hmm.
loneliness, is that it's not that there's not other people, it's that we're disconnected from ourselves. That's where
Yes.
the And so it makes so much sense that when you had that permission, which is such a huge part of how we work, that permission piece to actually be with all of, particularly grief, because grief is so powerful.
Mm.
And it's really that, like, it's like a baptism, right? It's like an emotional, we get to actually be reborn in the grief, because grief is really allowing loss to move through us so that
Mm,
something else can be reborn, so that we can evolve. So it makes so much sense that when you allowed yourself all of those, like you said, you had that death, but my sense is that it was the passageway for many years of grief
Mm.
yes,
and
yes,
emotion, and feel, to actually start to be
yes.
able to move through you, because it's so exhausting on the system to be holding down emotion. Because what we're
Yes.
doing is we're constantly trying to set up life so that we can avoid ourselves, and that is so exhausting.
Mm.
Because we cannot avoid life, like we're
Mm,
pitting ourselves against um an enemy that we will never win against.
mm,
And the
yeah.
exhaustion of that. And so, like, yeah, just this sense of you finally, and that you said, this wisdom coming through, because that's the thing, that's when we talk about the feminine, your woman, that's a huge part for us, is really getting in touch with the emotion and the feeling. And
Mm,
that's actually where our wisdom is and our truth is. And
mm,
we allowing that feeling to wash through us, we evolve and grow and learn and
mm,
become. That's the thing. It's
Mm.
not just, oh, like, let's just let it, it's actually, that's the way that we become. And we
yes.
grow and we evolve and we get to know. So
Mm.
I just wanted to, yeah, because I always get so inspired, because I
Yeah.
can feel the authenticity and the truth and the energy, yeah, and what you
And
share with us.
and just to unpack a little bit on
Mm,
the man side of things, and just to explain what's
mm,
happened here. I mean, I know Rosalie, because you've you've learned all the things now. But for those listening, is you know when the suppression of your emotions makes you feel unconsciously to a man. He won't know this consciously. We speak to many men, and they're not always able to articulate exactly what the heck has even happened, but they just know they feel different. Here's what it is,
Mm,
because a man who's taken the time to figure it out in his own life, which is when you are suppressing feelings and all of this kind of stuff, it makes you on some level really unsafe to be around. If you feel like a ticking time bomb, or like some sort of, like, you need me to manage your feelings for you, or something like that. So when you are able to meet yourself, as you so did, Rosalie, something shifts in this energy, where now this space opens up, and that space naturally, sort of, I want to close the gap on that. So with all that said, I'm curious as well, what perhaps other things did you notice in Will? What sort of changes have you seen and experienced, or maybe even in your own like perception of him, perhaps?
okay. And to answer part of your question, the time period was
Oh, right.
approximately over the course of 2 to 3 weeks, I started to see the shifts. So it was pretty quick.
So not
Um,
years of therapy, just to double check.
no,
All right.
no, no, seriously. And it was so quick, and as you said, energetic. And the other things I've seen and will, oh my gosh. The one most notable thing I noticed, it was actually after I did the no exercise. I became more confident in my no. I started to trust my no. And it wasn't like this indecisive no. It was a very firm no, but it wasn't like aggressive or, I'm waiting for an argument to express it. And I believe seeing me like that, he saw like, oh wow, okay, she means this. And he started to do the things I asked in the ways that honored me. And it was less of a back and forth or, why do I have to keep bringing this up? And he honestly took me at my word, and there was no back and forth. And
wow.
so I would say, like, that feeling of not feeling heard, it, it's gone because I'm actually speaking my truth. So, that
Wow.
was one of my greatest things. Like, oh, I don't feel heard. Well, am I speaking my truth? You
Mm,
know?
Yes.
Exactly. Are
Am
you
I
hearing your own truth?
am I hearing my own truth? And I wasn't for so long. I was being honest in the moment about my feeling, but I wasn't being truthful. I wasn't getting in touch with my truth. And
Mm.
like I believe you guys say it, like he knew that, oh, this is a truth for her. You know,
Yeah.
Mm.
it was big. And honestly, that I felt so heard and respected and appreciated. And it was love. You know, all of those things I felt his love. And
Mm.
yeah, that was a major shift. I would say what else?
Well, let
Our
me
son
just
being,
Mm.
one little thing on that is
yeah.
honestly, so many women out there, Rosalie, and men, everybody, on some level, what they're doing is um, saying no with like this mouse voice and then wanting it to be respected as if a lion has said it, but they're saying it
Mm,
with a little voice. It's like maybe, perhaps, other, and then hoping that this other person will read our mind and basically
hmm.
make set that boundary for us, right? So
That's it.
what you did
That's it.
was powerful.
Yeah, and
That's
it's
it.
and credit to you as well for being able to do that. Because actually that's actually a skill, I would say,
Mm,
being able to deliver that no with truth. Because
yes.
even when we feel it, we can be triggered, we can be scared, and sometimes it can go awry. So much credit to you for being able to do that, and such a great example of what we say. There's such a difference between, there's two levels of communication. There's the words and there's the energy beneath the words.
Mm, hmm.
And
Hmm.
honestly, the energy beneath the words is way, way, way more powerful than what's being, because that's ultimately what we respond to. Like, people
Yes.
don't even have to like, I know what it is. It's something like, we like when we take in 90% of communication happens just through,
Non-verbal.
yeah,
Yeah.
through
Hmm.
nonverbal. And that really says it all. And that piece as well of the difference between coming from your truth, what we call your queen, your sovereignty, and all of the other ways which are some form, honestly, of, I guess, the immature side of us.
Hmm.
So we're victim, maybe we're trying to manipulate, and like Sharif said, trying to get, like, oh, please help me. Like, the energy beneath the words is, please help me, please
Right.
save me, please rescue me,
Right.
poor me. Or the energy beneath the words can be, um, like, you better do this or else.
Right.
Right.
You should do this. You're really not playing your part. This is what you should do, and I'm teaching you, and I'm telling you. So there's
Hmm.
that, all of that kind of energy, right, gets spoken. But to do
Hmm.
that line of coming from your truth,
Mm.
that's a whole level of mastery.
Wow.
So yeah,
Wow. Yeah.
wonderful.
You guys make a good point. I wanted to add something. I just remember wanting to be in that truth, and it is energetic. If you're not there, your partner knows it, And I remember Will would say, like, I really want to believe you. I just don't, before I just don't. And that's how I know it's energetic. You could say
Mm.
all the right things, you can piece it together beautifully, but if your energy doesn't match it, you know. It's just
Yeah.
not heard. It's just not heard as truth.
And I just have to say, as you say that, you remind me that, there's been a few things you said along this journey where it actually seemed to me that Will had some sort of insight and
Oh yeah.
actually a lot of positive things going on for him already, I have to say. But I think you were about to sort of share some other insights that you had, or changes that you noticed, something like that. So I don't know if you've got anything else on that, Rosie. Would love to hear
Oh
it.
yeah. I mean, so many. um, Big ones is that I noticed that through LBL, I actually wanted to get a 360 understanding of all relationships. And I saw how not only my romantic relationship, I wanted to be a conscious partnership, a spiritual partnership, but uh, I noticed that my relationship to my father, my mother, my children, like every person was essentially enmeshed, and how I saw not only myself, the world, but how I saw Will, my spouse,
Mm.
and especially my father. My father played a major role in how I saw men in general. And, in many ways, I held Will, on a pedestal. And in other ways, I put him beneath that pedestal, but it was all through the polarity of how I saw my own father. And in both instances, it was inappropriate. And I finally learned to see him as just him, not
Mm,
someone I wanted him to be or someone I didn't want him to be. Just him.
Mhm.
mm,
Wow.
mm.
How did that feel when you're able to just see him and like, oh my gosh,
He's beautiful,
these.
in his own way. There's a beauty that is just like, this is not some, put together version of you that I hope or I'm afraid of.
Mm,
But this is you, all of you. And there's a deeper level of acceptance. I think when I accepted myself more deeply and, forgave myself, I was able to see him and accept him, because I
mm,
believe I projected a lot of my own, feelings of myself onto him. And,
mm,
he definitely, he didn't always speak on it, and there's one specific incident where we had a good discussion and I was able to apologize to him for comparing him to my father. And in that conversation, we were able to speak more deeply about honestly our relationship and how I embodied and I internalized a lot of my pain and a lot of my, negative thoughts about myself. And I spoke to him. I said, you never say anything about it. And he said, I would never say anything about that. I knew you could only be this hard on yourself. There'll be no use in me saying those things. I felt it. I didn't have to
mm,
say it. No one
mm,
can hurt you more than you.
mm, mm.
And
Mhm.
in that moment, I knew this man loved me. That like it was like this deep knowing. It wasn't what he said, it's what he didn't say. What he refused to do, you
Mm,
know.
mm.
Wow.
Wow.
That's
Yeah.
powerful.
That is love. Yeah.
That
That
is
kind of
love.
that where you accept someone for where they are. You meet them for where
Mm,
they are. And you're like, you have your own journey. And that's what
yes.
we do so much is that we try to change people and we call it love. But you know what it is? It's that we're so uncomfortable being
Mm,
in their present that we're actually trying to make ourselves feel better by trying to get them to change. Yeah.
wow.
But he was able, I imagine, yeah, to have that, whatever that discomfort, heartbreak even, and able to actually just have that compassion for you to have your own journey.
Yes. Yes.
Mm,
Wow. That's it.
yeah. 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 Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Mm.
what would you say if you could pinpoint like I don't know, a key shift or insight that you had from your LBL journey? You know, we teach a whole bunch of concepts, but is there one particular thing that stands out for you that was a sort of game changer? You may have already said it. I don't know.
I think I touched on a lot of them, but I would say another one. I have I had to learn to truly embody my body. I spent a lot of time in my mind, my whole life. So getting out of here and into that heart space through the exercises, honestly, my nervous system thanks you guys. And I truly like being in my body, you know. There's like this peace and this grace and this wisdom and this desire to be at home with myself. Um, and I would say through that, I'm able to navigate all of my relationships consciously because I'm
Mm.
in my body. And my
Mm.
mind, it does a lot. It says a lot as a taskmaster, but it doesn't have the wisdom I need to, make those decisions. Like you said, what would love have me do? And I would say I've had more of those conversations with myself. It's like, what does love want from me? Instead of making it about individualized instances, but big love. What does big love want? And knowing big love, what it feels like, how it carries itself is something I'm becoming more and more familiar with. And because I'm able to make decisions from that space.
Mm.
Mm.
Wow, that is it. That it and like so many women and so many people, I think you've hit the nail on the head. Is a lot of women when they come in, they don't even know the difference between their body, their truth, love, and their mind.
Hmm.
Like it's all the same, it's all mixed up, and that is such
Mm.
a dangerous place to be, because then it's like how do we navigate, like where is home?
Right.
Like how do we navigate our way through life? So that is yeah, that's a huge one. And like you said, it's when and I love that you said your nervous system thanks us, because I talk about the nervous system a lot. But we do. I mean, it's a key part of what we do, and it sounds so clinical. So I don't know about anyone watching this, but the nervous system is like this holy, beautiful vessel, and it allows us to actually just be able to hold and meet life as it is. And it's like you said, that's that truth. It's like the mind wants to come in and make it better or control it or give us a story. And it's like being able to just be like, I'm okay actually. I'm actually just gonna meet I'm actually okay with the truth. I'm actually gonna meet this
Hmm.
thing called life right now. I can do it. And so then the mind starts to be able to be this beautiful servant, this beautiful
Yes.
friend. Like it's like we want to befriend it. I don't want to vilify the mind. I know a lot of traditions do, but it's like I want the mind to become someone who's able to work with us,
Mm.
Yes.
because it's a
Yes.
beautiful tool.
Yeah.
Yes.
And
Mm.
you mentioned, Rosalie, briefly before about other relationships and
Mm.
how they all sort of come back to, you and your relationship with yourself.
Yeah.
I don't know if you have anything to say quickly on just some of other, changes you've noticed in
Mm.
relationships outside of your marriage as well.
Yes. Yes. My father passed away in 2021, and I'll be quite honest, I don't think I properly grieved him until LBL. And that permission to feel was a big part of it. And I was able to release, because I believe I rejected a lot of my experiences, but through LBL, I was able to truly release those experiences.
Mm.
Take the truth, take
Mm.
the wisdom, but release everything that no longer aligns with the person I'm becoming, the, with big love. And I would say that's the biggest thing I noticed. I moved from rejection to release. And
Mm.
that was big. And even my relationship with my mother, it's not strong. It's not very strong at all. But thank you, Sharif. A lot of your wisdom helped me here. And I I was able to heal my relationship to my mother.
Mm.
Mm.
And that there's so much peace in that. I began to understand that she has her own journey. She's a person,
Yeah.
she's a human being just like me. And you know, I said it in a call before, but there's no debt of love she owes me. I released that debt. So again, it went back to release all the emotional hoarding I was doing was holding me up. It was really dragging me down. And I'm able now to expand. And even in the relationship I had with my spouse and my children, there's expansion there now because I
Mm.
got rid of all the extra stuff.
Mm.
Yeah.
It's an expansive space to be. There's a lot of
Mm.
room. There's a lot
That's
of room to trust and be trusted, to love and be loved. And
Mm.
even with my children, I've read the books, the conscious parenting books, and all those things. But one thing, Beth, you said that sticks with me is we just we have to be master our emotions.
mm.
Emotional
Mm.
mastery is key.
Mm.
Emotional regulation is key,
Mm.
and I take that. That's key in my heart right now. So those are the big things I've noticed in my major relationships, and I do this a lot because it is full circle. It's how we show up in every relationship, how we show up with ourselves is how we show up in all relationships, and I see
Mm.
that.
And it's so beautiful to see, Rosalie. And honestly, the thing that comes to my mind is um, energetically the big difference between how you felt when you came in and what we saw happen for you, quite quickly, honestly, is going from like scarcity in life, not just in your marriage, but in your life, to
Yes.
abundance. And like I said,
Mm,
this expansive thing, and it's so clear, and we can feel it, like coming out of the out of the core, out of the laptop. And just last question from me then. I would love to hear, if you could, in just like a few words even, just summarize what your marriage feels like now as a container in itself. Yeah. I don't know if some words come to mind.
absolutely. Absolutely. I would say as a container, originally it felt like a very small container. I could barely breathe in. Um, I'll say through breathing, the container has expanded. It's like
Mm,
the lungs. And I would say it's a much larger container. It's the same, it's the marriage is the same marriage, but the container is much larger. And I think because I've expanded within myself, there's more room. There's
mm,
plenty of room. And I also credit that to the breathing exercises as well. But I think it's very, very much a part of how my marriage has grown, how I've grown. It's just there's this expansiveness within
mm.
myself.
And just to clarify, though, in that space, because I know a
Yeah,
lot of women, when they're when they got this like anxious attachment and all this kind of stuff, is
yeah.
space feels like scary.
Mm.
Space feels like distance. Distance feels like love being diluted. So my question for you: how does it feel in that big space?
Yeah, that's really good. Um, it feels warm. It feels inviting and safe. It's safe. Um, yeah, I can't speak enough about safety because that's one thing that I also experienced throughout the is I began to feel safe within myself again. You know, um, that external need for safety, it's true, but it's hyper when you don't feel it within yourself. And I started to feel that again through trusting myself. I was safe to trust myself, and it's warm, inviting, and I would say love is there because I embody love. It doesn't come and go. It's the presence. It's always present. And I think that's one thing I said when I first joined. It was like my clarity statement was that love was within reach, and it always is. It's within, and we just have to reach, and it'll meet us. Love meets us.
I love
Beautiful.
that. Wow. Yeah, and that piece about that's that space I was just feeling, like you said, is because there's this I'm safe, you're safe within yourself. And it's like that key part of, you said you were able to meet the emotions, able to actually meet the life force that's running through your body.
Yeah.
And as women, we have so much of that, which is the feeling, the emotion, all of that energy. And when we're victimized by our own energy, like we literally can't meet it, then what happens
Yes.
is we end up, yeah, everything in life, then we're victimized by it, because
Mm,
everything has an impact on us, right? And that's
yeah.
what, but now, like you said, you've cultivated this trust within yourself, within this life, with this presence in your own being. Then it's like anything can come and go, because it's like, oh yeah, that's just this another frequency of love that's coming into my life, and I'm willing, and I want to be able to meet that. So
Yes,
just
it
that just
becomes
that
an
reflect.
opportunity. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
something I avoid. It's an opportunity. It's an opportunity
Mm,
to allow love to flow. I see it that way now.
mm, and I remember, on our first call together, on the clarity call, and that was I remember, because your spirituality, and I
Yes,
know that's been a huge journey for you as well.
yes.
Um, but that was so palpable. Even like you were going through a challenging time with your spirituality and with God and love and all of that.
Yeah.
But it was so palpable for me. And I remember you saying, actually, I want my relationship to be this place where I get to feel free, and where there's this feeling of like this spirit, like as a spiritual container.
Mm.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And
Yes.
does
It
it
has
feel
become
like,
that.
yeah,
It has become that. And I would say it happened in like steps or waves. And at first it was my spouse being in my spaces. Before it was like, I won't go there. But now it's like, okay, you're here and you're meditating or you're reading on your, but he's just there and he'll, maybe lay on my shoulder or ask questions. And there's like this, it's a community sense now versus that's her and this is me, but it's like, okay, we can be in this space together. And I'll say it like this. I thought I wanted to be in a like-minded partnership, but I realized I just want to be in a like-hearted partnership. And we have that. Our hearts are connected. We may see things differently, and that's okay. If anything, that allows for more expansion. You know, because there's this, and I'll go back to my childhood for a moment, that sameness was safe. Being the same was very safe. There was no challenge, there was no confrontation. But in difference, you learn so much, you grow, there's opportunity. And now I desire that because there's this safety in the love we have.
I just got chills all the way through that. I don't know if you got that. I was like, preach, my goodness. Like, I was like getting chills all the way through that. That is truth
Yeah,
upon truth upon truth.
Yeah, I'm almost speechless, honestly.
That's like this. We'll just cut that out, and that can be a little mini sermon
Yeah, we'll make
of
that a
truth.
module in the program. Listen to this,
have fun
Rosie.
with that. Yeah,
That's right.
it's
That was
so great.
beautiful. That
Yeah,
was it. Like,
yeah,
that's exactly it. Everyone wants someone like-minded, but it's like-hearted. And we
yeah,
see that so much. Like in these relationships, and we have friends, I can see the love,
mm,
but they keep battling.
yeah.
But we can see the love, and it's like it doesn't need to be that way.
And this thing
No,
often that comes from both him and her much of the time, which is, I wish they were just like me, and particularly in that masculine, feminine realm, you speak to many men, and their ideal woman sounds kind of like a dude, honestly. And
yes,
you speak to women and their ideal man, and it sounds like a woman. I'm like, hey, you know, and,
it's true.
yeah.
No, that was like a healing balm for humanity you just gave
Mm.
us there, Rosalie.
Oh,
That was
thank
it.
you.
That was it.
Yeah.
So, so yeah, maybe just to close off, yeah, do you have any words of wisdom? Yeah, and that was one thing Sharif and I loved about
More
you.
words of wisdom.
Yeah, more words of wisdom to share with any of the women who are watching, who may be struggling, feeling stuck, going around in circles. Yeah, did you have anything you wanted to share with them?
Yeah, yeah. Um, I would say I'll leave you with this little story. Um, so when I was in labor with my second born, I remember being in the hospital, and I remember one of the nurses, it's a very amazing nurse, but I remember her saying every time I had a contraction, I would stop breathing, and it was to avoid feeling the pain. And I remember her telling me to breathe through it. It'll pass sooner.
Mm.
So my last piece of advice for you women, for you queens, is stop holding your breath.
What? That is, my mind is blown here, Rosalie. I've got like a meme going around in my head of just, oh
That
my
is
God.
good. That is
That was
really, really
good.
good. Yeah.
Yeah, when you open up your whatever, I don't know what next phase of your life you're going to be. You said you started writing and you
Working
used
for
to.
us.
Yeah.
That's it. Yeah. We're
I'm
gonna
open.
we're gonna have you there, Rosalie.
Yeah.
We'll be there. Oh my goodness, that was
Beautiful.
so beautiful.
Yeah, powerful, powerful. And I'm not even going to bother unpack it. Don't hold your breath. We could do a whole other thing, or maybe we will one day. Actually, that could be cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, don't hold your breath. Thank you so much, Rosalie. It has been just like we knew it would be. Honestly, we were so excited to speak to you, and we knew it would be a little bit enlightening for us as well. Actually, I have to say, on some level, opens up the mind and the heart, and you've done exactly that. So thank you, and I know this will be very inspirational to so many women out there.
Yeah, life-changing. Thank you for sharing your heart. Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you both for the opportunity.